guys, it's Pickles. Welcome to my first video titled The Good, The Bad and The Ugly. Now, I just wanted to take this video as a bit of an opportunity, as I mentioned in my first intro, to talk about the M135 in general. What's it like to live with, but more importantly, what do I feel the good things are, what do I feel the bad things are, and then the controversial topic of the styling. There's very divided opinions on this. Most people that own it like it, not all though. So we'll talk about that a bit later on. So I'm just driving out through a lovely village, Goring on Thames, where, well, I've just driven past George Michael's house. Unfortunately, recently passed away, and so I'm just going to go for a bit of a drive through the country. The weather's not great. It's pretty miserable. It's grey. It's raining. But you know, it's the UK, what can you do about it? So I'm going to go for a bit of a drive and tell you some of my favourite things about the car and some of the things that perhaps aren't quite so good about it. Now obviously everyone has their own opinions on this, and mine will probably be incorrect to the majority, but hey, everyone has their own opinion. Firstly, I want to talk about the good things. So this is my most powerful car I've ever owned, the most powerful car I've probably ever driven, apart from maybe on a a couple of car track type days where I drove like a Ferrari 360. And if I'm honest, this is more fun to drive than that was. It might have been the limitations of the track and the drive we were doing, but this is much more fun. So good is the power, is the throttle response, the just everything about the way the car drives, in terms of sort of straight line performance and all of that sort of thing. It's great fun. As you can see probably, I got manual, 6-speed manual. I think I'm in the minority here. I remember when I was buying the car, it was something like 80% of people, or even more, 85% of people had gone for the auto with this car. And me being who I am, decided manual's better. I'm no great driver at all, as you probably see from this, but I've always had manuals and I've always preferred the the connected feeling of driving. But if I'm honest as well, it's one of those things that the auto boxes are so good now, and there's such rave reviews about it, that I wouldn't necessarily go for manual if I chose again. But that's neither here nor there. So it's really easy to drive, if I'm honest as well. It's one of those things that when I first was thinking about getting it, it's my first rear-wheel drive car, I was a bit nervous. I was just thinking it's going to be quite hard to drive, it's going to be a bit sketchy in this type of weather. It's not, and I suppose that would be another good point for me as well. It's a rear-wheel drive car. I know it's not a proper M car, it's not a super scary or powerful V8 rear-wheel drive, but it's got a decent amount of power going through the rear wheels and no LSD. So I was a bit worried that it was not going to be controllable or particularly safe to drive in this weather. I know that's it's a bit of a silly opinion, but you think about these things when you're buying a car. And so far so good. I mean, touch wood, it's been all good. These sorts of roads that I'm driving on now, they can be quite greasy, quite slippery, so I do have to keep my eye out, but the majority of the time they're absolutely fine. If I pulled away on a road like this from zero, accelerated away, I'd get a bit of lighting, the lights coming up on the dash, that kind of thing. But as it stands, just for normal driving, it's absolutely fine. It really is. I can't exaggerate enough how good it is just as a day-to-day car, just for using. wondering how good is the standard sound system, obviously go and listen to it yourself. I would advise listening to it on a test drive, because that's the real tell. The downside for me is the amount of road noise that this car has on the Michelin Pilot Super Sports is quite a lot, and so the problem for me is when I'm driving on the motorway, I have to turn the sound up quite far, but there's no distortion even at that point. Don't get me wrong, the speakers aren't amazing, but it does what it needs to do. So I would say for the majority of people, unless you're an audiophile, in that case I don't think you're going to be even that pleased with the Harman Kardons or the mid-range set. Save your money, put it somewhere else. So yeah, that's a good point for me. But one little thing as well, it has indicators. I didn't know it was going to have those. Apparently they are featured on all BMWs. Onto the bad. I've had the car for 6 months now, just over 6 months. We're coming up to 7 months now. Actually, I got a message from BMW the other day telling me that I'd had it for 6 months now, and checking that everything was okay, which is nice. It's nice of them to send that to me. I was probably expecting them actually to send me some kind of like offer on an M3 or something, but we can dream, can't we? So in terms of the actual bad things, there are not a huge amount of bad things for me. There's a couple of things that are basically, I would say, are niggles. Careful with that word. That frustrate me a little bit, but they're absolutely fine. I can live with them. Number one, and this is a strange thing that no one else, when I was looking on the forums and things, had ever said anything similar. And I think it might be down to the fact that I'm approximately 2'4" tall, and so I have to have my seat in quite high up in the car, as you can see from me touching here. I'm not tall. This is not because I'm tall. Now, I have an issue with the rear view mirror, which is really strange. It's very hard to describe. It's kind of like there's a line halfway across it, and if I move my head like this, the cars in the rear view mirror shrink and grow. The best way to look at it was that if I had my head up here and there was a 2 Series behind me, it would look like a normal 2 Series. If I went like this, it would look like a 2 Series Grand Coupe, get all bulgy and fat and ugly. No offense, BMW. So that's a weird thing. Now, I actually went to BMW about this and got them to check it. First technician came out, he was about 6'4", sat in my car, couldn't see a single problem, but then he obviously had to move my seat all the way back. Now, when I spoke to one of the sales guys about it, they then went and had a look at it. He was about the same height as me, which was great. So he had a seat in the car and instantly said, yeah, I can see the problem. You can see it when you look at the parked cars behind you. So they took it in to change the mirror. Left it with them, they changed the mirror, over the course of one day, came back and it's still the same. So I don't know what that's about. If anyone else has got the same sort of problem, I'd appreciate some feedback as to whether it's just me, whether I'm just crazy, or whether it is just due to the seating position, or if there is an issue with the mirror. It might be that I got 2 faulty ones, but at this point it's not enough of a problem for me to care about it. It's just a bit frustrating when I'm looking behind me and I can just see squashed, fat little cars. It makes it a very strange experience. So that's issue number one. Number two, this is still, to me, a brand new car. I'm starting to develop a couple of rattles in certain places. There's one that comes from here, and I've spent my time fiddling around with it and pushing to try and stop it from rattling, but I can't seem to get it. It's not always there and it's not particularly loud, so I can't really stress about it too much, but it's, you know what it's like when you got a new car and you want everything to be perfect forever. I know these things happen every time we go over a pothole in the UK. These roads are terrible. Things are going to get rattled loose eventually. But I might go speak to BMW about it. They might just tell me to go away because they're not going to spend their time ripping apart the dash and probably making things worse. So yeah, a few little rattles and things appearing. Not too bad though. Second thing that I wanted to talk about. A nice clear bit of road ahead of us here. The next thing I wanted to talk about is just a bit of a strange little issue, is something that I've noticed within the last probably 2 or 3 months. It wasn't there initially, and this is again to do with the audio, but it's not a speaker problem or an issue with the lack of sound or whatever. It's something to do with receiving audio from my iPhone. So I plug in my phone through the USB most of the time. Sometimes I just do it via Bluetooth, and it seems to do the same on both of them, but I get a lot of clicking and popping randomly on songs. It's not at the same time, so it's not a problem with the audio file. I think, however, it's some kind of issue with the firmware update that happened with Apple a little while back, potentially. It's with the connection with the iPhone, so I use an iPhone 6 with the latest firmware, whatever that is, 10 something, who knows. It's a bit frustrating. Now, again, it's not bad enough for me to have warranted, a special trip to BMW to fix it. Realistically, at some point, if it carries on, I will do, because there are a few issues with the Bluetooth and the audio connection in general. One thing that I completely forgot to mention from the good, and this is something from my perspective as well, having never had a six-cylinder car, I've always had four-cylinder turbos, that kind of thing. The sound in this car is awesome. It is really nice. It's a good bad balance for me, because I wish there was more sound, and I know that obviously there's options that can be done, but this sound right now, it's good, but a lot of it's added, inside. A lot of that comes from the speakers, and it comes from sort of the sound generator. And now I know that some people obviously tell you just turn it off, but I think if I was to do that, there'd be no sound at all, and then kind of it just feels a little bit less dramatic, a little bit less enjoyable to me. It's quite a visceral experience having that noise, and it's just so much more enjoyable. So it's great in the fact of when you put your foot down, when you're in sport mode, especially when you're in Sport Plus, it really does sound great, but you have to be sort of really giving it some beans, or doing a cold start, or just blipping the throttle to get any kind of like real exhaust noise, and that's just a little bit frustrating. I feel like a power valve exhaust or something like that would probably release a bit more of the sound that's in there. Obviously, if you go for things like the downpipes, decats, that kind of thing as well, you're going to get more performance out of it as well. All of these things to consider, which I'm actually going to talk about in another video, just about sort of future updates, that kind of thing, whether they happen or not. And then one final thing I wanted to cover off, I'm not going to spend very long on this as well, because my opinion is that I think from most angles the M135i is a pretty good looking car. It's not winning any beauty awards, it's not as aggressive or as mean looking as your M3, your M4, or anything else proper M liveried either, but it's kind of that good intermediate, which is exactly what it is. It's an M performance car, it's not an M car, and the styling goes along with that as well. You look at it from the front, we've got the little silver louvers around the air intake ducts. I think it looks quite cool. I've changed mine to have the M Sport black grills, kidney grills. I think that adds to it as well. You can't tell from now. I'll show you some pictures and do a bit of an around the car as well. This is a mineral grey car as well, which I think works well with the black kidney grills. And so yeah, for me, I think it's a pretty good looking car. Now this is an LCI, which for those of you who don't know or are new to it, is a life cycle impulse. That basically means facelift. There was a facelift back in 2014, I think. I'm really sorry if that's wrong, please don't berate me. But what that meant is they slimmed down the headlights basically, and they completely changed the rear tail lights. Again, the opinion's divisive on this. I think that I'm just as fond of the rear tail lights of both cars, the LCI and the pre-LCI, whereas the front lights, I am 100% glad that I got the LCI. I really did not like the old style headlights. If you see comparison pictures, the older headlights were they came down a lot further. They were quite fat looking lights, and they just looked out of place on the front of the car. Again, obviously a lot of people disagree with that, but this is my opinion. So yeah, so I really like the front end of this car, and I think the lights suit it really well. Always quite funny to see opinions of people on this car. Obviously it's a very ordinary looking car. No one realises that there's a 3-litre turbo engine in the front there, and the amount of power it's producing. And my dad has always been a BMW person. He's never been particularly fond of this car though. pretty much that. I've waffled on quite a lot now, so I appreciate, obviously it's quite a long video, but I just wanted to get my opinions out there. Now, I'm a member on a couple of forums, such as Baby BMW, and I see quite a lot of questions coming through on there as well. So what I like to do next is maybe to take a couple of those questions and make a video with answers to that as well. If anyone watches this video, I'd really appreciate if you could give me any questions that you have as well, if you're in the same situation that I was, looking to purchase what would now be an M140. I know it's a different car, I know it's a different engine, but other than that, you know, the interior, the options, colours, pretty much everything is the same. So feel free to ask any questions. Obviously, if it's about sort of the sound of the M140 or what the differences are, unfortunately I can't answer that for you in terms of performance, but yeah, give me any questions you've got and I'd love to try and answer them, and it would be great to help some people out like I you know, was looking for when I was buying my car. So yeah, thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video.